Okay, today we're going to be working on that 2002 or 3 Golf GTI with the 1.8 turbo. We already installed the clutch on it. It's a clutch kit, complete with the flywheel and everything. And so the issue with this vehicle is the transmission itself. So you have the transmission remove, and as you notice, we put the new clutch fork, okay, and the new release bearing. But okay, so the issue with this transmission is that the differential is loose, so either that the oil was low in that transmission, or just the bearings are just, the age, defective. So this flange here is tight, the bolt on the end here is tight, but the issue here is the differential moves side to side like this, okay, and up and down. The transmission not stable enough, but you notice, so there's loose on either like left to right and up and down. On the end of the transmission is okay, so the bearing here is okay. And one thing to check when you remove a transmission is this particular bearing and seal. See, this has to be tight. In this case it is, okay. So I'll be stripping this transmission, and I'm going to replace the 2 seals on the rear differential flange and also the rear differential bearings. So I'll take it apart. I'll do some videos of the process, and it gives you an idea what is involved when you want to split the transmission like this. Excuse me. So anyway, I'll be doing this, and I have removed here the clutch fork. The clutch fork has a new bearing on it, okay, because we've put a new clutch on that car, and the bearing, the seal here is already been replaced. And this pivot bolt here, this one is new also, because the other one was all worn out and was starting to wear in the clutch fork. So anyway, so I'm going to take it apart and we'll see later on. Okay, the next step here that I've done is I've removed both axle flange, and I noticed that the I guess that's the left side flange. This taper brass piece here was broken in at least 3 parts, and I had some in stock, new ones, so I put a new one here. That's important to make sure. There is a split here, that's normal, because when you put pressure on it, it will squeeze like that. So it's normal that it has like a split here, but it should not be in like 2 or 3 pieces, okay. So that's that. This one on the one on the passenger side, on the right side, this one was okay, it's not broken, seems to be okay. And so I removed the speedo drive, okay, the gear. This is a speedometer sensor, it screws on the top here. I've removed the cover for the 5th gear, removed the selector cover, or where the bearing is. This is actually where the, I'm going to show with the light here. See, this is where the bearing is, I mentioned, that has to be in good shape, and also the seal, okay. So that's that. So I have the cover removed. This is the 5th gear. This is the one of the first gear, the 5th gear, and the other gear. They mesh together, and you have when you shift in 5th gear, this engages like that. So there's a lever here that when you select the gear, the 5th gear is engaged. So like right now it's in neutral, okay. And when you put 5th gear, there's a synchronizer ring in there, and these little dogs engage. And so I'm going to remove all this, the bottom cover here, all these bolts, and so I'm going to split the transmission. So from there, that looks good. So anyway, I'll do another update. So I have heated those 2 bolts with a torch, as you can see, the torch, and you can see still some smoke. So I heated both bolts because sometimes they're not that easy to remove. I remove that with an impact. So so right now they're both removed. Alright, I'm pulling the fifth gear here with the synchronizer hub and everything. And this is like the factory tool that Volkswagen uses. The make is Kuko, and you have these very thin thin legs that goes under here on both sides, and sometimes it's not easy even with the factory tool. See, right now I'm turning, it's coming out. See, I had to remove the piece here, where the hub engages with the gear. Had to remove that, and these little tree keepers, and this clip that goes on top. This one is bent. I don't know. I'm gonna probably try to find a better one, a second-hand one that I have probably. But anyway, what I've done, see, I'm turning, and it's gonna release. Alright, so that should be enough. See that remove. Okay, so I've got the whole assembly, and you've got this bearing here. Okay, and this sleeve will need to be pressed out, but I think when you remove the case it's gonna fall out. But right now it's pressed on this shaft, so that's the needle bearing, and I still have to remove this other fifth gear, the smaller one. So I'm gonna use the factory tool also, and we're gonna go from there. Okay, so right now I'm doing the same thing with the other smaller gear, the fifth gear. I have the puller installed. I have heated up with the torch in order to expand the gear. So pull it like this. It gives you an idea, you know. You just can't remove a gear like that easy. But right now the gear is hot. So that gear is removed. So basically, and I have old bolt, like it's exactly the same as this one. Okay, same bolt, but I cut it. I cut it to put it here, and I punch in the middle. So I just screw it a little bit, so I can push in the center here. So that's good. And just to be sure, I'm gonna mark with some paint. So that's gonna tell me that the gear was on top. You know, this one is very different on both sides, but I mean, it's just when you put it back together, then you know. I put some mark so I know what is the top, where it goes, you know. It's not every day that I remove a transmission like that, and I'm not really specialized in transmissions, but anyway, I'm going to remove all the bolts and split the case. Oh, and also there's one hidden here in this oily hole. There is one, I think it's a Torx. So there's one hidden in that hole, so if you don't remove that, you'll probably have a very hard time to remove split the case. Alright, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so now I have removed all the bolts from the case. So inside here, the bell housing, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like at least 8 bolts. And these nuts are for the bearing carrier for the differential here. And so they're all the same length. So this has all been removed. And I'm going to flip the transmission there. One hand, I guess. Alright. Okay. So all these bolts all around the differential casing has been removed. Okay, and this is the one here I was mentioning. It's in here deep. Okay, so you just got to make sure you get this one, the Torx, and all these. There's 4 pins these 4 pins, they have O-rings on the bottom there, and they fit here, and they hold the shifting fork mechanism, all the whole assembly. So there's 2 here and 2 at the bottom, and so the case is pretty much ready to be split. So I'll split the case then. Okay, now I have the case split. So you can see this is what I want to replace. These 2 bearings, there's one here and one the other side. This is the bearing race. You can see that the race, I just saw that the race here, see how pitted it is, and how, you know, you can probably see. So this bearing here is finished for sure. You see all the rest of it is okay, but here there's a bad pit. Okay, and also you can see there is a magnet in the case of the transmission. Okay, and that the job is to collect all ferrous metal. Okay, so you can see that it's quite dirty. See the amount of little paste on it, and this is the reverse gear. I always forget either this bolt, because this is the one that holds this carrier for the reverse gear, or the one in, like I said earlier, this one that holds it goes like here inside. Okay, so I think actually it screws here. So there's 2 bolts that holds the reverse gear carrier. So this is, you can remove this. So I'm going to just screw it here so I don't lose the bolt. But anyway, I always do this. You know, I always forget either to remove this one or that one, and then I have a hard time to remove the case, and then I notice that there's something wrong. So these 2, they're the most common one for me anyway. Anyway, so I'm going to remove all the transmission pieces, and also I'm going to inspect the reverse gear. I can see that the reverse gear has some chip on it. So if I have another reverse gear available, use, I think I'm probably just gonna swap it. And also I'm gonna check, make sure. See, the reverse gear acts. There's a lever here. See that? See, it goes on and off. Okay. So I'm gonna check all the gears, make sure the gears are okay. There's nothing chipped or nothing like that. It's good to inspect all these bearings. So alright, so I'll tear it even more. Okay, so the cases are split. Okay, and as you can see, like I said, the rear differential, see the race, how pitted it is. Okay, no wonder it was loose. It could have probably also made a noise while driving. So I'm going to replace this bearing and all these, well, those 2 bearings on the differential, the 2 races, and even this one, you can see how pitted it is too. Okay, the differential bearing, and also this one is in bad shape. As you can see, it is all pitted. This race is here, it runs in here. The race doesn't look that bad, there's some scores on it, but the bearing is all pitted. So this is the bearing I'm going to be putting in. Okay, that's a FAG. This is the box. Okay, this is a FAG. Actually, the bearing here, that bearing here is the same part number for, I think it's the inner bearing on the older cars like a Mark III, Mark II. It's the same as a rear wheel bearing, this one. And I'm going to be putting these 2 axle bearings, these differential bearings. They come from the dealer. Okay, so that's the only place I could find them. So you know, there are 2 bearings in here. That's a Volkswagen box, and here, this bearing carrier. Okay, this is the part that is here. Okay, so I'm going to disassemble this and have a look, make sure the bearing is in good shape. If it's not, then I'll replace this bearing. I'm not rebuilding the whole transmission as far as like all the bearings. I'm just giving it more life. So I'm just inspecting, make sure, you know, everything is okay. See all these little bearings. I'm not changing everything, because then you know, changing all the bearings would probably not be economical. It would probably be easier to get a used transmission, but then again, you get a used transmission, you might have the same issue here. So it has to be a transmission that has been very well maintained and with lower mileage. So see, I have this is the input shaft. This is the one that the clutch spline engages on. Okay, and it goes to where the fifth gear is. So and I mentioned this is the reverse gear. Okay, this is the reverse gear, this one. Okay, and I can see that on the edge, you know, it wasn't perfect, but I mean, a reverse gear is not a gear that you use, you know, long. But I can see that somebody probably see at the corner here. If I have a second-hand gear, I'm probably gonna put it on, so just to be sure. And that's about it. So I don't have the special tools to remove the race. So usually what I do, I weld a nut on the race and I use a sliding hammer to remove these race. Same thing here. I don't have the special equipment to remove this, so it takes a little bit more time. But anyway, so I'm gonna remove these races. And if you look in the differential here, see, it was rubbing here, so just a loose just a loose of the differential, it was rubbing into the case a little bit. So there's quite a few bearings that needs to be replaced. Okay, now I have pressed the all the gears and the synchronizer from the it's called the output shaft on this one, and this is the small bearing that fits in the case. Okay, so I pulled it out, and right now I have here the setup with a pipe and with a bearing splitter, and I have it on the press, and we'll see if I can press it out. Okay, so that's pressed out. And so I'm going to press new bearings on that and reassemble the output shaft, and we'll go from there. Okay, now I'm pressing the bearing back on the output shaft. I don't know if I'm going to be able to press completely. I'll probably have to move a plate, but see, I'm pressing it back in. So I'll have to move the bearing a little bit because this is hitting, but anyway, it gives you an idea. So you have a pipe that fits here with a plate, and so I'm gonna bring it to where it should be installed, and I'm gonna press also the small bearing on the bottom there. So now you can see that I have pressed the bigger bearing on the output shaft, and this is the race carrier. It goes on top like this, okay? But now I need to press the smaller bearing on the shaft, okay? So what I do most of the time, I see the old bearing, I remove the cage and the rollers, okay? So I use it as a tool. So I put the other bearing face to face, and now I can press it in the press without damaging the cage on the other bearing. So I'm going to be pressing this one back in, and we'll go from there too. So here the small bearing being pressed on the output shaft. Okay, see here. A bit of pressure, and that's about it. So the bearing is pressed. So that's pressed perfectly. Okay. So this is the old bearing that was here. That's junk. And this is the race that this bearing will run into. But that race has to be removed from the case. This is the one here, okay? So no, not that one, this one. that one has to be removed from the case. And I think the way I'm going to remove it is usually with a sliding hammer. I'm going to weld the nut on there and remove this bearing race. Okay, right now I'm reinstalling the first gear. I have put some of my famous yellow paint. I put this here and there because this has to align. It has like a hole here, like a slot. So this synchronizer ring has to fit. Okay, so I'm gonna just put it there and I'm gonna start to press. See, right now I'm using an exhaust pipe, okay, with a plate. So I'm using all kinds of tools that you know, you can make yourself, because obviously, you know, we're not like a factory, like a Volkswagen dealer. So we, you know, we improvise, you know. So I'm pressing the synchronizer hub. Right now that's fully in. So that's the first gear. Alright. So now I'm going to press the rest of it. The second gear is going to be the next gear. Okay, so right now I have installed that snap ring here before installing the second gear. So this is the first, this is the reverse idler gear, and I'm going to be installing the second gear right there. Okay, now I have the output shaft fully assembled. So that's fully assembled. All the synchronizer rings are there, all the gears are there. The bearing is pressed, the smaller bearing and the larger bearing under. So I'll try to remove the okay, so I have removed the two race out of this side of the case. I removed the race from the inner, the bigger, well, the differential, and this is for the bearing for the output. The way that I removed it, I use a welding machine, a MIG welder, and you can still see that this one is still smoking. So what I did, I welded a nut on the race, okay, and then once this was welded, I used this sliding hammer to remove this race. And this side, what I did, I welded you know, some welding here, and so this was installed like that, and I used a punch from the other side and I punch it out, you know, so it gives me an area where I could punch. And also you just gotta make sure there's some shims. See this one, there's a shim here, and usually there's another shim here, but anyway, just I'm gonna clean the whole case and just make sure that you don't forget these shim, because this is kind of set up from the factory. So so then I'm gonna press the bearing in the case then. Okay, so I have removed one side of the bearing, and now I'm pressing the new bearing on the differential. Okay. So that's good. Alright, so it's going to be the same with this side. Use this bearing puller, or splitter they call it, and a homemade puller. And so I'm going to do the same with the other side. So I'm pulling the second bearing of the differential. So I have the bearing puller, splitter. So I'm using my homemade tool. It's hard to work with the... Anyway, you can see that this is how I have it set up. So it's grabbing the bearing from under, and I'm turning. It's almost off right now, so it's gonna be removed very soon. Alright, so right now I have installed the case temporarily just to see if the differential is not too tight. I've installed the same shims. See, it turns real easy, but now it's tight. You know, I can't move it. I haven't installed the seals yet in the differential, but I put the 2 flange and the case is bolted. So I just wanted to make sure that they spin properly. You know, it doesn't, it's not too much pressure, but yeah, now the differential is tight. So, and also I'm gonna test to make sure. So I have here, I'm gonna make sure that the bearing also for the output, make sure it's not too tight either in the case. So at least now I know that the differential is okay. So I'm gonna install the seals and start reassembling the transmission. Okay, so the 2 case have some sealant on it, not a big amount. See, on both sides, everything is clean. I pressure washed the cases to make them clean. Everything is installed. See the 2 bearing in the back here. Well, you only see one, and everything seems to be at the right position. I've put another reverse gear. I found a second-hand one. The gear is here. Put a second-hand one which is in better shape, and so the shifter fork is at its position. I reinstalled the magnet and I cleaned it, and all the races are new. I haven't installed the seal yet on the axles. I'm gonna do that before. After I'm gonna bolt the case together, and so you know, I'm gonna bolt the both half together and start to reassemble the transmission. Okay, so the 2 halves of the transmission are bolted together. I install one seal on the left side here. What I usually do is I put a little bit of sealant, like silicone, on the seal itself, so it makes it glide easier. You know, like I said, I use this Victor Heinz sealer. This is the one that I use to seal the transmission back together. What I do is I put a big O-ring. You can see here, I put a big O-ring before putting the seal, and then I put the seal, and then I put the flange on the side of the transmission, and then I use the bolt, the stock bolt, and then I bolt the CV joint with the seal, and then what it does, it pushes the seal right, like all equal, because it's a rubber part, and so it presses it real straight, so you don't have to use a hammer or nothing like that. Obviously there's probably a special tool to press this in, but you don't need what I do. Like I said, I use a big O-ring like that, and when you bolt it together, then it will be pushed real flush, real the perfect position. And so I'm going to be bolting that side, and I'm going to be putting also the shifter, the selector shifter, just to see if all the gears shifts before completing the whole transmission. But goes good. So after that, I'm going to install the 5th gear on top. So I'm going to install both flanges, and then I'm going to check if the transmission shifts in all 4 gear, and then the 5th after that. Okay, so the transmission is almost completely assembled. The only thing missing is the seal here. I'm not going to put it right away because I'm turning the shaft so that I can grab the shaft. It's much easier. But both flanges are bolted with the seal installed, and the shifter tower is installed. The 5th gear is installed. So what I'm gonna show, usually what I do, I test them by hand. Like right now, this is like in the 1st gear, okay? So I sense that it doesn't force much. Okay, so the 2nd gear would be here. 2nd gear, 1st or 2nd, I'm not 100% sure. And That's another gear. That's another gear. And we're gonna, this is reverse. Reverse hard to turn. Okay. So that's reverse. Okay, if I use another gear, if I turn counterclockwise, see, if I turn the same, the flange is turning the same direction, and when I put it in reverse, the flange is turning clockwise. Okay, so that's reverse. And the fifth gear is pulling and like this. So that's fifth gear is engage. Okay, I'm gonna turn. See, fifth gear is engage, and that's neutral. Fifth again. So everything seems to be correct. So I'm gonna put the cover back on. That's pretty much that. I'm gonna put the oil in it, and that's gonna be good. Alright, so this is a finished product. So everything is installed. I put the oil in it. So like I said, it has a new fork, new release bearing, because this car has a new clutch also. So everything is assembled, covered and everything. So it seems to shift in all the gears. So I'm gonna put it on the car and go for a test drive. So we'll see how it shifts